SH, thank you for calling back. Hey, I'd like to say this too. Real quick, you got a woman that works for you is really incredible. Cocaine is a hell of a drug. People that follow me understand it's from my mouth. To God, here do you understand what I'm saying? It's from my myth to God. What made one of Hollywood's smoothest power players fall apart in front of the judge, and how did Suge Knight's explosive statement shake the room and leave Diddy rattled beyond belief? I'd like to say this too. Real quick, you got a woman that works for you is really incredible. You don't find too many people I thought you were about to implicate her in the investigation. I'm just glad you're not implicating Dusty in the investigation show, 'cause I can't take that look. She's not in the investigation. But what I want to do for her is I gotta do this I want to turn her on to this clothing line called, Girls Mondays to, Sunday Borrow Money to Sunday. And I'm definitely going to look out for it because I buy a lot for a lot of people from that place. But look, what I was basically trying to say is this: I respect your show and respect what you're doing. But most important thing there's gotta be a solution. Because this been going on in the industry for a whole bunch of years. For decades, as she tells the story. How D-Rock and Puff put on this all-black stuff and took the guns out. 'Cause they saw that Suge Knight may not have had or heard somebody. 'Cause that's how they do, your man is on the street, they out there, and they'll give a phone call, yo, the Suge is right here, man, seemed like to probably be by himself or whatever like that. 'Cause someone's big, the courtroom was packed, wall to wall, journalists, camera crews, and every nosy bystander who could squeeze in, you could feel the weight of silence pressing down, like the room itself was holding its breath. And then he walked in. Diddy every neck turned. There he was, the mogul, the myth, the man who always played it cool, rocking a designer suit, oozing swagger with each step. He gave a small nod to his legal team and took his place like he owned, the room calm, collected, unshaken, or so it seemed, but that act cracked fast as the proceedings kicked off. The mask began to peel at first. Diddy was all business, poker face on, giving occasional nods as the attorneys volleyed back and forth. But the zoom lenses caught it. Thesmal cracks a tight jaw. A quick glance at Cassie, who sat firm and focused. Like she came to settle a score. Then the tone flipped when Cassie's team stepped up with her statement. Everything turned ice cold. Her voice was calm, cutting like a scalpel. Every accusation, every receipt, every carefully laid out claim chipped away at. His calm, the cool persona gone in seconds. He leaned forward, rubbing his fingers. Together his eyes darted as one harsh allegation hit. He shook his head, slightly, whispering something under his breath to his lawyers. The unraveling had started those inside. Said he looked rattled, like the ground had just shifted. Beneath him, one reporter described it like watching a man who used to run entire industries suddenly question everything. The unshakable Diddy. He was shaken, keep in mind. This is a guy who stared down everything from beefs and lawsuits to tabloid firestorms. He's always been ice in the middle of chaos until today. No shouting, no theatrics, just body language screaming, "Get me out of here!" At one point, he dropped his head into his hands, rubbing his temples like he wanted to erase the moment completely. Sure, courtroom meltdowns aren't rare. Not in cases this messy. Legal experts and psychologists alike will tell you when it gets this personal. Anyone can break even legends, but did he watching him? Like this, that hit different, and Themament that cracked him wide open, that was brutal. Cassie's lawyers dropped a bomb. No one expected a piece of evidence that flipped the energy instantly as soon. As it was introduced, Diddy froze. His confidence vanished, his skin went pale. Whatever that item was, it shook him to the core. But the craziest twist that wasn't, even the biggest shock of the day, they're all Storm walked through the door. Moments later, Suge. Knight, yep, that's Sugar's. Soon as he entered the mood, in the courtroom, snapped. Heads turned phone, clicked conversation, stopped mid-word. Why was Suge here? What was his angle? And why did it feel like he was there? To back Cassie. Even more chilling what? Info is Suge hiding about Diddy, and why did he choose this exact moment to unleash it early on? You can't just look at Diddy in isolation. You said this was done to him, he learned from others, and it was done to him. And then he did to others. Tome that. Sounds like what I hear when people are talking about abusive situations. You know, hurt people that someone was sexually abused. They wind up being a perpetrator. Is that what you're suggesting about Sean Combs, that he was sexually abused? And he now sexually abuses. Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I think, he repeat, what was done to him. And like I said, if you look at Russell Simmons, you know the truth. Andre, you know the truth. Fly Davis, you know the truth. Jimmy Bean, you know the truth. So there's not certain things that all of a sudden you got this, the industry is a quick business. It's been like that for a long time. And the casting couch is real, but it's for women and men. But far from all that, I think the most important thing is to. I feel like they should let Puffy tell his truth. I'm quite sure he's going to expose a lot of people. I'm sure he's going to move forward with it. I don't think it should be a situation like the Esting thing where they found him hanging from the ceiling of the dead before the truth come out. Do you believe? I think that the room was already boiling with suspense. But the instant Suge Knight crossed that threshold, it felt like the air vanished. It wasn't just that he showed up, it was how he made his entrance. Oh, heads up, no media buzz. Just that heavyweight energy that only Suge brings with him for decades. Suge Knight has loomed large, a force. Both respected and feared in the music game as the mastermind behind Death Row Records. He carved out the gritty unfiltered voice of West Coast rap and earned a reputation for being one of the most intimidating figures in the business. And when it comes to Diddy, their saga runs deep, and it's ugly back in the golden age of 90s hip-hop. Suge and Diddy weren't just rivals. They were figureheads of a full-blown cultural war. Suge repped the raw aggression of death. Diddy polished the flash of Bad Boy. Their rosters clashed, their crews clashed, and behind closed doors, there were stories the public never even sniffed. So, when Suge casually strolled into that courtroom looking like he waced, Cassie jaws dropped, reporters sat forward. The gallery buzzed, even Cassie's own attorneys looked caught off guard. But Suze didn't show up to just watch the show, dressed in a dark, tailored suit, hemoed with the calm of a man who'd stared down, worse, and lived to talk. About it, he slid into his seat like hounded eyes, scanning the room until they landed hard on Diddy, that single stone cold glare. It said everything, something. Heavy was coming. What made Sug's siding with Cassie so unbelievable wasn't just the old beef with Diddy, it was the fact that Sug never shows up in court unless it's deep, and when he does, it's usually deadly personal. So why break his silence? After years in the shadows, some say he's been sitting on years of resentment, a fire that never went out. Others claim he's playing chess, reminding the world that Suge Knight's name still rings out. Whatever the reason, his decision to publicly throw weight behind Cassie shifted the trial's entire energy, and when Suge finally took the mic, you could have heard a phone buzz from across the room. No yelling, no drama, just calm, deliberate words. Suge didn't raise his voice or point fingers, but each phrase hit with the weight of a sledgehammer. He spoke of responsibility of buried truths in the industry that people pretend not to. Notice no direct names dropped, but it didn't matter. Everyone in that room knew who he was targeting. He called the music business ghosts. And for the first time that day, even the judge leaned forward, visibly shaken. So the question started echoing, was this revenge or revelation? It's easy to paint this as a power play, Sugo finally swinging back at Diddy, but there was something different about his tone, a seriousness that didn't feel like theater. Maybe it was personal, or maybe he knew something that could burn Diddy's empire to the ground, but he wasn't finished just when it seemed like. He'd made his point just when people were ready. To exhale, Sug dropped one final line. One phrase, one accusation, one fire-starting bomb. And that's when the entire courtroom blew up accusation, that he directly to Diddy's past. And that's when everything truly fell apart. I'm in prison right now. I had a great run, so I don't go mad. I don't wake up mad. I've been locked up for 10 years, and I ain't had a bad day yet. And it's a lot of things we can do to help each other, and it's never too late. For help, I've blessed us to have a voice. Let's use our voice. I had told Puppy a while back. I told TDJ a while back, come on, collect calls. We can politic, because one thing for sure, you're just not going to walk away with one scratch on it. Do you think that he can do Sodo? You think Diddy knows enough that it's a very delicate balance that maybe investigators will want to know these other names and greatly reduce High's exposure to criminality, to time versus what people would do to keep him music quiet. Number one, I've been known him a long time, and we was friends. We're not enemies, but we were friends. He not a dummy. So he's smart enough to work his magic on top of that. This man right here, he been involved with the FBI, and for most of his career, it's not like he didn't have no moves. So I don't think nobody should just count him out. I don't think he going to lay down and just crawl in the corner and die. He probably going through a lot of right now, because he probably going through a lot of withdrawals for the drugs, but the industry got him on drugs, and see they do these things to take control. There's nothing wrong with being gay. If you choose to be gay, that's your preference, but they doing this to people for control. It's a power situation, Sugum, and they've been having the power of yes, I appreciate your perspective on this, and I just want to get something very clear, because if what you're saying is true, and I'm not questioning your credibility. I can't assess it. I don't know. So, right? Then he's got people who are the biggest names in the business who help trying to cut you off. But if any of those people I mentioned don't have no drinks, and don't do no bottle, with the silence felt unreal as Suge Knight slowly rose from his seat, ready to speak. By then, the atmosphere was already electric, still recovering from the shock of seeing him align with Cassie. But not a single soul, not the press, not the jury, not even Diddy himself was braced. Or what came next? Diddy, who had already been off balance since Sug's entrance, leaned forward slightly, his elbows locked on the table. Jaw clenched like stone, eyes narrowed in on the man he'd once wared with across coasts. Everyone knew this wasn't going to be pretty. Sug didn't warm up. He launched straight in voice, growly low and commanding it, shut down every side conversation in the room. No preamble, no sugarcoating. He aimed straight for the jugular. He accused Diddy of building more than just an entertainment empire, claiming the real structure was layered with secrets, manipulation and shady deals the public never saw. According to Suge, Diddy's empire wasn't just driven by hustle. It was fueled by fear, deception, and silence. Then he dropped the nuke, an open accusation that Diddy orchestrated serious wrongdoing behind closed doors to keep his throne intact. Everything stopped. Sugg suggested Bad Boy Rise wasn't just industry brilliance, but something much more sinister. He painted a chilling pattern of repeated abuse. of influence and hinted that others were, waiting in the wings, finally ready to speak now that the door had been cracked. No names, no specific dates, but the implication. Explosive, his words dropped like concrete, sucking the sound right out of the room. There was no doubt in his tone, no hesitation. He delivered it, with a kind of steel conviction that made even non-believers sit up, and the timing mid-trial, mid-mayhem made the blowland even harder. Now, let's be honest, Suge Knight isn't exactly a poster boy. For truth, his record's a circus of arrests, scandals, and wild headlines. He's been known to stretch facts or invent them outright when it benefits him, but this hit different. It didn't feel like recycled beef. It felt precise, tactical. His testimony mirrored everything Cassie's lawyers had been hinting at, and that's what gave it teeth. This wasn't rage, it was chess. Then the real storm hit. Diddy froze for a moment. He didn't move, just stared, locked onto sugar, blinking slowly, like he was processing a betrayal. Too deep for words? His legal team jumped fast, raising objections, trying to bury Sugar's words under legal technicalities before they could take root. But did he? He wasn't frozen. For long, eyewitnesses say he immediately turned to his team, muttering fast and low, lips tight with frustration. He didn't yell yet, but you could see the cracks forming as Sugi kept speaking. Diddy grew twitchier hands, moving legs shifting at one point. He tossed a sharp hand gesture towards Sugar, a dismissive flick that drew a quick, panicked whisper from one of his lawyers. And the press, they were eating it up within minutes of the recess. Headlines lit up the internet. Suge Knight torches, Diddy in court. Empire built on fear. Diddy's breaking point. Suge's testimony sends shockwaves. The internet was split. Some called Suge a washed-up villain chasing attention, but others, they heard every word because it aligned with everything whispered behind closed doors. For years, it echoed Cassie's claims, and it hinted that something massive might be looming. Twitter threads, TikTok reactions, YouTube commentary, all asking the same thing: was the dam about to break? Would more survivors finally come forward? The mood in that courtroom shifted. Cassie's legal team looked newly energized, like Suge had handed them ammo-wrapped incredibility. Meanwhile, Diddy's camp scrambling, plugging leaks in a ship that was clearly sinking. Then Suge closed with one final shot. This man's been selling smoke for years. But the truth, it's on his doorstep now. That's when the room erupted. Diddy snapped his face, turned red, his cool demeanor shattered. He slammed both hands on the table, hard enough to rattle his water glass. He muttered something sharp under his breath, loud enough that the bailiffs locked eyes and subtly shifted. Security was alerted. This was no longer just Cassie's trial. Suge had ripped the curtain wide open and exposed the fault lines beneath Diddy's empire care. Who you are, prison and jail is a negative environment. If somebody can do something to them and get a name for the rel, they're gonna actually do it. Or if they can do whatever they feel they got to do to prove. They also got to learn. We got to learn from our mistakes. Everything don't have to be mistakes. You got to better yourself. But we all know what we signed up for in life. So if I sign up to be a football player, I knew I'ma get hit, and I'ma hurt some other too. I signed up to be in the music business and the entertainment business. If you fight for right, and being a black man, they're certain things you got to look at for, the challenges you understand, but you got to keep your head on the swivel and keep that thing in you at all times, because if it got to go down, it should go down in a kamikaze fashion. So Suge Knight, they get a callio, Suge, look like he by himself. Y'all could probably get that scene. Now I know it's got to be all throughout the trial. Cassie sat with a kind of calm that couldn't be faked. She held her position at the plaintiff's table with poise, barely shifting, barely blinking. Her eyes stayed forward, her body language unreadable, while Diddy adjusted his collar, shuffled papers, and wore his nerves on his sleeve. Cassie sat insolent, steady, and composed. Observers started whispering. This wasn't just grace, it was a move, her stillness. It was deliberate. But when Suge Knight walked through those courtroom doors, something shifted, and everyone noticed. Suddenly, Cassie's silence didn't look like self-preservation. It looked like control, and when Suge rose to speak, dropping bombs no one expected, the room turned. Or was she shocked like the rest? Or had she been 10 steps ahead the entire time? She didn't flinch, no smile, no stare, nor reaction at all, just that same quiet presence. Calm, calculated, composed like Akis's master watching the board. Tip her way, and the board did tip. Suge's words were powerful. Sure, but what they really did was reframe the entire courtroom atmosphere. They gave Cassie's claims a weight that went beyond the personal, because courtrooms, especially public ones like this, aren't just about evidence. They're about thestory, and the story just flipped in her favor. Suge Knight, a man known more for stirring chaos than calming, it had just backed her. This time, Suge wasn't the disruption. He was the validation, and that changed the whole game. This wasn't just Cassie versus Diddy anymore. This was a third force stepping in one. With decades of music industry, baggage, street credibility, and insider dirt, Cassie's legal team picked up on it. Instantly, their tone shifted, their arguments sharpened. They leaned in. They started weaving Suge's testimony into their case-like thread through fabric painting Diddy's alleged behavior, not as an isolated incident, but part of a much bigger pattern that's haunted the industry for years. Suge hadn't just given support, he'd handed them a storyline. Now, this wasn't just one woman seeking justice. It was a wider warning shot that the culture of silence might finally be cracking. And Diddy, he felt it. The moment Suge showed up, Diddy's entire demeanor changed. He knew what this meant. He knew what one credible voice could trigger, and that if others followed Suge's lead, it could all come crashing down. Meanwhile, Cassie didn't flinch. Outside the courthouse, the shockwave was immediate. Entertainment outlets lit up, blogs ran wild, celebs started weighing in. Some praised Cassie's unbreakable posture, a woman standing strong while the world dissected her pain. Others questioned, Suge, was this about truth or just vengeance disguised as virtue? But speculation aside, one truth stood tall. Suge's entrance flipped the script, and in the age of optics, public backing matters. When someone like Suge Knight, with all his controversy and history, takes a side, even the doubters have to pause. It raised one massive question. Was Suge just the beginning? Did his words unlock a floodgate? Cassie's voice, already powerful, now carried even more weight. She didn't have to say a single word. She didn't need to, but with Suge's support came heat. Diddy's legal team moved fast, ready to discredit him, paint him as an aging antagonist looking to claw his way back into relevance. And sure, the Adamo Suge's past is far from spotless. But even so, it didn't matter, because his statement landed it, cracked the surface. This trial was no longer about one accusation. It was about power, legacy, industry rot, and in the middle of it all, Cassie remained silent, steady, unreadable, in control. No smirk, no glance, no reaction. She gave Diddy nothing to work with, and that nothing spoke volumes. Now the jury wasn't just hearing her story, they were believing it. Suge lit the match, and the courtroom caught fire. Diddy's side looked shaken, cornered on defense, and Cassie, she looked like she'd been waiting for this moment. The whole time, whatever happens next, one thing's crystal clear. The momentum has shifted, and Cassie's holding the power. Now, do you believe that Diddy is in danger in prison? And do you have advice for him? Based on what you just said, well, the first advice I have, I don't never want to say he's in danger, and neither Should he say that? Because once he get to the point where they feel he going to be suicidal to himself, harmful to himself, well, they put him on suicide. Watch, Diddy cultivated an image as one of hip-hop's ultimate mogul, the visionary, behind Bad Boy Records, the architect of platinum anthems and the face behind billion-dollar ventures. He didn't just make hits. He manufactured icons from music to fashion to liquor brands. He wore every crown. Producer, entrepreneur, trendsetter legend. He was the formula. But now that shine is fading and fast. The courtroom chaos, the public meltdown, and Suge Knight's thunderous testimony are cracking open the glossy exterior of a man who once seemed untouchable. This isn't just a courtroom case anymore. This is personal. This is legacy on the line, and the second SUJ stepped into the mix, everything turned volatile. Because this trial isn't just about Cassie's accusations. It's about whether the world still believes in Themith. Diddy sold for decades. He's always been the picture of controls, Muth-talking, cool-headed, never ruffled. But what we're seeing now is the unraveling of that image in real time. People aren't just reacting to this moment. They're re-examining his entire story. We've watched this script before. Celebrities who once ruled culture only, to see their reputations crumble under public scrutiny. Think Cosby, think Weinstein, once war-ripped. Now, warnings. Diddy's not in the exact same situation, but the similarities hard to ignore. An empire built over years now being questioned piece by piece, a public divided, a narrative growing darker. By the day and the internet already shifting gears, long time. Fans are clashing online, some defending him, others feeling betrayed. One post read, "Another hero falls." Another, "The mask always slips." Eventually, even Hollywood seems unsure where to stand. A few vague posts about truth and justice have started to pop up. No names, but the intent is loud. Everyone's watching, waiting, seeing which way the tide turns, and the headlines, they're ruthless. Diddy unravels. Under pressure from music, royalty to courtroom collapse. Cassie holds steady while Diddy loses control. Every glance, every whisper, every twitch is being dissected under a microscope, and with Suge Knight stepping in. As a wild card, journalists are digging up old files, past incidents, buried allegations, deals that once flew under the radar. This isn't just a trial anymore. It's a take-on of a legacy. But there's what makes it even more dangerous. Sug's accusations didn't just shock the room, they lit a fuse, because even if some question his motives, he's saying things no one else dared to, and he made it clear this wasn't an isolated situation. It was part of a pattern. Now the question is, will others speak up too? Is this just the first crack in a much larger wall? Suge all but promised this wouldn't be the last revelation, and that alone is enough to shake Diddy's entire foundation. Now he's facing a lose-lose decision fight. This out in public, risk more exposure and keep the scandal in the spotlight, or try to settle behind closed doors, which only raises eyebrows and whispers, what is he hiding? Either it's messy, going quiet. Screams guilt, going loud, invites chaos, and either way, the brand he built, already bleeding. This trial has done more than make headlines. It's shredding the very image Diddy spent his life creating. What's coming apart now isn't just a PR problem. It's a collapse. His courtroom outburst, Sug's courtroom, bombshell, and Cassie's calm composure. That trio might be the image that follows him forever. Because this isn't about contracts or messy romances anymore. This is about power. And what happens when it finally gets dragged into the light? Nobody escapes a scandal this deep without bruises. This isn't just a court case. This is a reckoning for an entire industry. Diddy's narrative is under the microscope. His legacy's under siege, and the players, Cassie, Suge, and possibly more to come, have flipped the story completely. So now the biggest question isn't if there's more, it's how much more, and who's next. Tell us where you stand in the comments, because this saga, it's just heating up, and Hollywood, it's beginning to buckle under the pressure.